Hi, Ralph.
Hi, Jim. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, to coin a phrase, and we're thinking that it's a day when people might go out and do great things in their yards or even on their balcony if you're an apartment dweller.
I think we're blasting people here, Ralph, so I'm going to try and put it down. Okay. Yeah, you're talking about gardening, aren't you?
I am, and gardening is a therapy for a lot of people. It has many benefits psychologically, and many that people may not think of.
You know, part of gardening is that you're creating something. I mean,
Yeah,
we've talked about creativity before, and we all have this creative urge within ourselves. But, no, we're not growing a tree we're not growing a cabbage, but we're facilitating it, right?
right. We are. We're making, or at least helping nature to make something out of nothing, a seed,
Mm-hmm.
a bulb,
Yeah.
and that for much of our evolutionary span has been something that people said, well, this is necessary, but it's also aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. It's calming to do gardening. I mean, I guess you can rush it. Commercial farmers certainly are in a rush to be able to do things quickly and efficiently. But when I'm out there in the garden, pulling weeds in the raised beds, that's what I'm using these days, for me at least. Uh, just the actual looking for a weed and deciding to pick it out
Yeah,
is a calming kind of thing.
yeah, and we talk about flow, and that's interesting because it really is part of a larger theory, attention restoration theory, which really says that you focus your attention on anything, including gardening,
Mm-hmm.
and it restores your psyche. It makes you feel good
Mm-hmm.
to totally concentrate on something to the exclusion of anything else.
You know, Seligman talked about that in the TED Talk that he did on positive psychology, and we'll put that up under Learn More. Okay, so you can go back, and he talked about his friend who was a stockbroker and a bridge player, and he'd get into a bridge tournament, and time would just stand still for him as he got into what he referred to as flow.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
So what did you say that was? Restoring what?
that's attention restoration theory.
Okay.
So it restores our ability to focus completely on something.
Mm-hmm. Um, you know, we've talked about this recently when we've talked about social media. There's so much stuff out there grabbing for our attention. TikTok videos
Yeah,
that we don't look at and process on a ongoing basis. We just do these little dopamine shots, right?
yeah. And one of the things, again, that goes back some way, about 2000, they measured attention span in the average North American, and it was about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And now it's about 47 seconds.
Yeah, I can see that.
So, we get pulled in all directions.
Right.
So
So
when we
gardening helps us to
to calm
relax,
down
calm
and
down.
relax and say, I can focus on something particular.
Hey, look who's here.
Yeah, Sheila just came in, Jim's wife, and she's been doing a lot of research and writing about gardening lately. Sheila, what's your take on the psychology of gardening?
Well, I can speak from my own personal experiences that I go out into the garden and I can feel my blood pressure go down. I can feel this, calming, and the brain waves not so jumpy. And so I can only believe that that's a good thing. And the research seems to bear that out, that they actually have discovered that the serotonin level and the vitamin D levels go down, or up, I'm sorry. And
Yeah, calming, right?
yeah, it's calming.
Mm-hmm. So serotonin up, vitamin D up,
Yep.
cortisone probably down. Yeah. So you've been doing some work now with particularly raised bed gardening, and I mentioned that a little bit ago. That's the kind of gardening I like because I can do it standing up.
Right.
I don't have to get down onto the ground.
Oh, slight correction, dear.
What?
You can do it standing up when it's an elevated raised bed, but there are two kinds. One is a ground raised bed.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's the one that you're in charge of, right?
Yeah, right.
It seems like a contradiction in terms to talk about a ground raised bed, but
no question. But the idea is that the garden is on the ground and contained within some boards.
Right. That I happen to have built for you,
Yeah,
right?
you did.
Yeah. Okay, so the Ralph, you told an interesting joke the other day about two ladies who were in the raised bed garden.
yeah, and one on her raised bed looks over at the other and says, "What are you growing this year?" And the other one says, "Older and grumpier."
Okay, and what are you growing this year, Sheila?
Well, we're doing lots of experimenting, aren't we, with our newer beds that we brought some to the new house from the old place, but now we also built some. So we're trying out all sorts of different things, but the fun of it for me isn't just saying I did it and then sitting back and watching it grow, which of course in a garden that never happens because you have to keep maintaining and adding to and taking away and so on. But the thing for me is this cycle. I'm much more aware of the cycles of the sun, wind and rain, all the different things that when I'm indoors, I'm just not aware of.
When you're indoors, you're in this nice self-contained environment,
Yep.
right?
No wind, no rain, no nothing.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that what we're really talking about here is a concept of self-efficacy, of doing things for yourself. And you can say the wind and the rain do a lot of it, but also you're in control of what you plant, what you weed, and
What you water,
what you
and feed.
And what you grow. Are you growing food? Are you growing flowers? Are you being somebody who says I want to have good organic nourishment, or are you somebody saying I want to nourish my soul?
Or Sheila's here. She gave me a quote earlier this morning, something about raising flowers in a flower box.
Oh, yeah. So the founder of this amazing seed company called High Mowing Seeds, he has garnered the heirloom seeds that would have been lost, and he now makes them available for sale. And he wrote in this essay, and I excerpted from that even if all you do is put flowers in a flower box outside your house, you have done something to make the world a better place.
So that's kind of the butterfly effect, right?
It's a butterfly effect, yeah.
Which we'll talk about at some other point in time. So yeah, you've changed the world for the better. Now, a lot of us are never going to change the world for the better the way John Chapman did. We talked about him a few weeks ago. Remember, Ralph?
Yes, I do.
Johnny Appleseed?
Yeah.
Who went all through the Midwest, particularly Ohio, Indiana, southern Michigan, planting apple trees. And I guess we still have the legacy of John Chapman.
Yeah.
But there was another guy over in Europe. His name was, and I'm going to butcher this name, but Elzard Bouffier.
Bouffier, yes.
Okay. Who was written about as the man who planted trees and grew happiness. Do you remember that story,
I
Sheila?
do. I remember it because it's so moving. Here's a man who was after some war, probably not this century, and he was living alone in a shack. And every day he would put a sack of seeds on his back, and he would go out with his walking stick and use the walking stick, and he would pop a hole in the ground and put a seed or a sapling, whichever it was he had. And he did this for 30 years?
Something like that. Long period of time.
Long period of time. And before he began, this was what they called when you make coal, you use a lot of wood. So the place had been decimated. There were only stumps, and of course, the life of living a very hard life. The people in the area were very, not nice people, hard to get along with. And all of that changed over a period of 30 to 50 years.
As the nurturing environment of the forest began to take over?
Yes, and now something else is there is a couple down in, it's either Guatemala or, it might be Guatemala. We'll put it in the notes, the correct link to this. This couple had a career. The husband was a photographer for National Geographic. And after a very fruitful career, he and his wife moved back to what was their homestead, which was hundreds of acres in the rainforest, but it was decimated.
Yeah. People are not treating rainforests very well these days, are they?
And we're talking about another 30-year period here where they came back and they committed to restore what had been destroyed.
Yeah, and they documented it with photographs.
You go on their website and you see the before and the after, and it's so moving. So that's gardening that on a much larger scale.
Gardening with a purpose.
Well, and it's on a more global scale. I mean, they're altering the rainforest by improving it in that way, and of course the life of the people. But on a one-to-one basis, all you do is put flowers in a flower box.
You're changing the world. Okay. Now, I've mentioned before that you've been doing, various kinds of research and writing about gardening, particularly raised gardening, right?
Raised bed, yes.
Raised bed gardening and organic raised bed gardening.
Well, yes, that's the other piece is that our food is really not nourishing us. And that's because it's mostly GMO, so genetically modified food. And oftentimes when we eat it, our body doesn't even really know what to do with it.
It doesn't recognize it as food.
Yeah. And so the idea in my garden is that it would be all organic and non-GMO, and where possible, heirloom seeds.
Okay. And you actually went overboard, I think, in the... I remember coming home one day and seeing a truck in the backyard unloading I was going to say a ton of soil. Actually, it was more like 2 tons of soil.
I don't think you could go overboard on soil preparation.
Okay. So have you, and this is a rhetorical question because I know the answer, you've written this stuff down, haven't you?
Yes, I have. Yeah, in fact, I just published a book called Organic Raised Bed Gardening. 7 easy steps to, and then there's a whole long list of adjectives, things like, chemical-free and eco-friendly. And so if anybody's interested in it, you can find it on Amazon.
Well, okay, Sheila. Ralph and I know about social media and we know about marketing. And anytime anyone on this media says easy, it isn't. So, okay, to our listeners, this is not easy. But at least it's a roadmap. But it's a pretty good roadmap. You were going to give our listeners a deal, right, Sheila?
Yeah, remind me.
Well, you told them to go to Amazon to get a copy of the book, but you're going to give copies away free.
Yes. On Amazon, as you probably know, having reviews is a way to boost up the algorithms and get this book out to more people so it can help more people. And so if you're interested in reviewing the book, I can send you a PDF that looks just like the book, and you can read it anywhere on your phone or your tablet or your computer. And then I will send you a link for you to leave a review on Amazon. And
You'd like a good review, right?
well, that's presumably, yes.
Well,
Well,
people
you'll
who
get
have
a good review because it's a good book.
yeah,
It is a good book.
and people who have reviewed it have been very
Very
complimentary.
positive.
Yes.
I've not only tried to simplify the process and make it clear the relationship between raised bed gardening and organic, but I've also, there's a soul of the book too, and that is there's some poetry in there, and there's some helps in the way I express it to the simple act of putting a seed in the ground. You know, I teach my grandsons, and I taught my daughter that when you put a seed in the ground or a plant in the ground, you say to it afterwards, grow sweet, grow strong, grow big.
Very nice. Okay, so under Learn More, you're going to give us a link to you so
Yeah.
that people can send their request for the PDF directly to you, right?
Yeah, I will do.
Okay. Well, Ralph, what's growing at your house?
Well, in my case, I literally have a window box on the front window of the house, and the the thing I've done this year is the same thing I did last year, and that is our house is dark green, and I planted flowers that blossom in pink, and it makes a very nice contrast. It kind of illuminates the front facade of the house, and it feels very good every time I drive in the driveway and look at the front of the house. I say, that's my window box.
Okay. And what has Karen, your wife, been planting?
Well, she's very proud of the way her violets have spread. We have a good seating circle in the back of the yard, and that's covered with violets. And we've got irises blooming and other flowers. Karen does not grow veggies because, well, the story is that she had an aunt who was obsessed with pickles, and the aunt was a school teacher, and she couldn't go anywhere in the summer because she had to stay home and
Tend the pickles?
tend the cucumbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm speechless.
Well, I can
You know-
honestly say that I'm not pickled.
I wonder how many people kind of had their lives saved during COVID by having the ability to go out into the backyard or the ability to go out into the balcony and actually do something like gardening. I don't know if anybody's looked at that, but I would
Well-
imagine it's significant.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, it's interesting, Jim, to me that fresh air and being alone in fresh air was, if not a cure, at least a sovereign way to be through the rigors of COVID. Because, you know, if you were alone and breathing air outside, you didn't have to really fear very much contracting COVID. If you were within, an auditorium full of 2,000 people in a political rally, you did.
Yeah, right. And in fact, you know, in that sense, fresh air, sunshine was a cure back in the day for tuberculosis.
Yeah, yeah.
So antibiotics have taken over from that. But I think we've talked about this before, Ralph, that getting out into nature is really healthy psychologically and physically. But if you can't get out to Yosemite Park or Yellowstone or Algonquin Park in Canada, you can get out to your backyard, to your balcony,
Yeah, and
or to
you
your
know,
garden box.
And the thing is that, for many of us, particularly people who live in communities, inner city communities, and live in apartments, uh, the the idea of having, a ground of your own has kind of vanished. But it's very important to understand that part of gardening is gardening as a place. And it becomes your place, whether it's a window box or a backyard plot, if you're lucky enough to have a backyard, or whatever, even two pots in your living room that you have planted and tended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got two orchid plants in our house that we've tended for the last 3 or 4 years. They've bloomed, and then they've gone dormant, and they've bloomed and then gone dormant. And that helps us in a cold Michigan winter get through. So for our listeners, I'd say, yeah, get out into the garden or bring the garden into you. Plant your seeds, plant your bulbs, and have some fun with gardening. It's not only enjoyable, but it's good for it hits all of the senses that we talk about in psychology.
Yeah.
It's good for your behavior. It's good for your emotions. And as you begin to think about how you're going to plant, like Sheila was talking about, cognitive ability.
And thinking of cognitive ability, if you become a gardener, every spring you'll get 5 or 6 catalogs from various places, and you can sit and plan and sketch and, say, here's what I'm going to do, and here's why. Like,
Yeah.
Sheila has this motivation to grow organic foodstuffs for health. Somebody else might say, I'm going to grow orchids for their aesthetic qualities. And somebody else might say, I just want to be outside.
Right. So until the next time, this is Jim.
And Ralph.
Saying, keep your stick on the ice.
Because we're all in this together.